Vladimir Putin stated that the military operation in Ukraine, which escalated into a full-blown war, had several objectives. These included protecting individuals from abuse and genocide by the Kiev regime, as well as demilitarizing and denazifying the nation. Additionally, Putin aimed to halt NATO's eastern expansion, which he believes poses a threat to Russia's security. He called the Ukrainian authorities a gang of drug addicts and neo-Nazis. Putin claims that NATO countries support far-right nationalists and neo-Nazis, and that Ukraine historically belongs to Russia. Putin considers Ukraine a mere puppet of the US, and argues that it was never a truly sovereign nation. This is just a short summary, but what implications does this have for Ukraine? He alleges that the country is under the governance of extremists, despite the fact that its leader, Zelensky, is of Jewish descent, and he's been chosen following democratic elections, although there are indeed malicious and far-right organizations in Ukraine. The Azov Battalion, for example, is a far-right paramilitary group in Ukraine that was formed in 2014 as part of the country's response to the conflict in eastern Ukraine. The Azov Battalion has been linked to a nationalist and far-right ideology that prioritizes Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, while some of its members have been reported to hold white supremacist and anti-Semitic views. It is noteworthy that the group's leadership has explicitly rejected extremist ideologies and emphasized that it does not endorse Nazi views or racism. In particular, the former commander of the Azov Battalion and current member of the Ukrainian parliament, Andriy Bialetsky, has also emphasized that the group has removed individuals with extremist views from its ranks. This is not a phenomenon exclusive to the country. Similar issues exist in Russia, Poland, America, and many other nations are seeing a rise in far-right support. It's not a big surprise, but far-right extremism and neo-Nazi supporters are active in many countries. Consequently, this is merely a convenient excuse to rationalize the conflict in Ukraine. One lesson that we can draw from previous wars, if denazification was truly his goal, in Afghanistan, where we battled the Taliban for several years, is that attempting to combat an ideology with weapons and bombs is ineffective. Although it may force the ideology to retreat into hiding and become less obvious, the fundamental beliefs and values that drive the ideology may actually become more entrenched as hatred towards its opposition intensifies. Looking at history, the Soviet Union played a significant role in defeating the Nazis alongside the Allies, and this legacy continues to hold great importance for many Russians today. However, some experts argue that Putin is using the term denazification as a propaganda tool to portray himself as the liberator of Ukraine, while deflecting criticism from his government's controversial actions, such as the annexation of Crimea and involvement in the conflict in eastern Ukraine. The Russian government controls many major media outlets, which allows it to control the narrative and promote its agenda, and those who don't comply could face jail time. In recent times, individuals who speak out against the ongoing conflict in Ukraine may face punishment for defamation or discrediting soldiers and volunteers serving in the military. These offenses are now punishable by law and could result in imprisonment for up to 15 years. Putin's ultimate aim is to restore Russia's influence over Ukraine by promoting a government that is friendly to Moscow's interests. Zelensky, on the other hand, is perceived as being more pro-Western in his orientation, with a greater focus on strengthening ties with the United States and European Union. If you remember, in the past this didn't go so well. In the town of Mikhailivka, Russia installed its own mayor, Ivan Sashko, but it didn't last that long, as he got killed in a car bomb attack, where a bomb was placed under his seat. Dmitry Savlichenko, another official in Russian-controlled Kherson, was killed in late June by a car bombing. And these types of events will likely continue if Russia were to install their own officials in the regions it controls. Let's say Putin wins the war. Demilitarization would entail the army gives up all their weapons to Russia or return what they got from NATO. In the context of war, this refers to the process of reducing or eliminating the military presence and capabilities of opposing forces in a particular region. This process may involve the removal of weapons, equipment and troops, and the establishment of demilitarized zones, or other measures to ensure that both sides comply with the agreement. It's extremely unlikely this idea has any chance of succeeding, and it will probably lead towards malicious launching attacks for years and years. However, demilitarization is not always successful in achieving its intended goals. In some cases, one or both sides may violate the terms of the agreement, leading a never-ending circle of conflict. Regardless of how much territory Russia can capture and annex, its claimed territories would never be accepted by NATO. After Russia's annexation of Crimea, NATO adopted a strong stance in support of Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. based on internationally recognized borders, and it's likely the same will happen whenever new annexations occur. It is clear that Russia possesses a significantly larger army, as well as overwhelming artillery power and air superiority in certain regions of the country. But Russia can't win at the geopolitical level, and any gains or annexations will never be accepted by the international community. Ukraine may lose the war militarily, even with all the NATO support, but by invading, killing and destroying the country, Putin certainly won't win the hearts and minds of the population. Even if Putin can take significant portions of Ukraine, it's likely NATO will keep providing military support to the country. And if Ukraine doesn't see a way forward with its own troops, this could possibly lead towards an escalation, to the point of putting NATO boots on the ground. Firstly, it could trigger a direct military confrontation between Russia and NATO, which could potentially lead to a wider conflict with serious implications for regional and global security. Secondly, such intervention could increase Russia's isolation even further, resulting in even more severe economic sanctions and other measures against Moscow. It could also damage Russia's relationships with other countries, for example China, who would like to see a swift resolution to the conflict. Despite China's increasing likelihood of becoming the world's leading superpower, it is unlikely to risk sanctions by providing military assistance to Russia. However, if the conflict between Russia and NATO escalates into a full-blown war, Russia may require further support from its allies, which could include China. Thirdly, a prolonged and costly conflict could weaken Russia's military capabilities and drain its resources. This may have implications for Russia's domestic stability and its ability to pursue its geopolitical goals in other regions. There have already been some struggles with Wagner and the military. Are they going to be willing to fight the NATO forces? According to a defector, Putin is living in extreme isolation and paranoia about his safety since the invasion of Ukraine. He operates under strict personal quarantine and has implemented escalating security protocols. Additionally, he only travels by train, claiming it cannot be tracked by any information source, and he does not use phones or the internet. Instead, he relies on information from a close circle of trusted individuals. Russia has indicated that it may use tactical nuclear weapons in response to a large-scale conventional attack that threatens the existence of the state. Some experts believe that Russia's reliance on nuclear weapons is influenced by its perceived strategic disadvantage relative to NATO, and that Russia may use nuclear weapons to compensate fighting against a much larger opposition. But as China is firmly against the use of nuclear weapons, doing so will risk losing them as an ally. One indisputable fact is that Zelensky's leadership and bravery has provided the Ukrainian people and army with a sense of hope during the ongoing conflict. Despite having the option to flee the country and seek refuge from the war, Zelensky has chosen to remain in Ukraine and has played a crucial role in maintaining the morale of Ukrainian troops and guiding them in the conflict. The now famous quote, "I need ammunition, not a riot," showed the dedication towards his nation. Additionally, he has been actively seeking support from European and American allies. Without Zelensky's leadership, it is probable that the country would have collapsed rapidly.